What's going on, cat people? It's the crazy cat man Harry here with two cats, and I know that I was out of the loop for a long time as far as what the TDS developers were doing, and so just with the Commando update, I went back into the TDS Discord and was kind of looking around, seeing what they've been cooking, and I noticed that they have been doing versus maps leaks for the past couple of months, and I kind of looked at them, and they were fire. And so I'm going to be covering those in this video. In case you haven't seen them, you really need to. They are very, very impressive. Dare I say better than the regular maps? So let's go ahead and check them out. This is the first one that got my attention. I was like, wow, the colors are so vibrant and vivid. This is going to be such a fun map to play on. Almost looks like they're doing some kind of longest obby on Roblox collab. And initially, I didn't even notice that this was a versus map. I was looking at all this cool stuff here. I was looking over here at the path. I thought that's a really short map. And then I clicked out of it and I went over here and I was like, oh, this is kind of like a Badlands remake. Again, not knowing that this was a versus map. Very cool that they have the path going through the fossilized remains of a dinosaur. Once again, I clicked out. I went over here and I was like, huh, this looks a lot like the Tropical Isles map. Like, why are they redoing this? And I think it's because these two islands are so clearly separated that it finally clicked in my dementia-riddled brain that these are two different areas. Like, it's not one map. And then I saw, oh, this is like a versus map. Oh, these are versus maps. So then I went back and I looked at the first one again and I was like, oh yeah, now I see it back over here. And that's when I thought, this is an amazing versus map. So one thing I will say about versus, I have played it before in other tower defense games, and I remember it not really being that much fun. I think it was Evolution Evade. And I think that what makes it so difficult to have a fun versus mode is really just the balancing between two players that have different towers and different skill levels. And then, of course, how do you force them to actually compete with one another outside of just doing the same map at the same time? Is it something like, who can kill the zombies the fastest? Who can finish all the waves the fastest? One of the main ways that games make this a direct confrontation is by allowing you to send enemies onto the other player's board with your own money, which forces you to decide whether or not you're going to spend your monies to upgrade your towers or put more pressure on your opponent's towers. And this is really where that fine line is of this just being a spam fest, which is what the other versus mode that I played was. The person that won would just spend all their money spamming enemies on the other player. They would get overwhelmed and they would die, as opposed to actually having to use some kind of strategy here, like having to place and upgrade your own towers so that you're ready for your opponent spamming enemies on you, while also periodically using your money to send enemies to them. It needs to be both, not one or the other. And you'll notice here that these paths are really short. You're not going to get a lot of time to kill enemies. You're going to have to be really smart with how you allocate your resources. I kind of wonder how farming is going to play in here, because you're probably not going to get a full 40 waves. But I would assume that the devs have figured all that out, because they've been working on this for a few years, or at least talking about it, preparing for it, and now that they have all these different maps out for it, then I would assume that it's good to go. And when you consider how fun the game has been lately with new events and new towers, I gotta think this is gonna be fun too. So now that I've given you my thoughts about the versus mode as a concept, let's see what kind of maps we're gonna get to play on. As I've already said, this one is awesome. I love the colors. I love all of the effort put into all of the extra stuff around the outside that doesn't really matter for the actual versus battle. It just enhances the environment, and I think is the kind of thing that really sets mediocre games apart from really great ones. Now, going back to the Badlands version, you can see that it's a little bit longer than the obby one. I would guess that the enemies are going to be spawning here from this area and trying to get into the cave. This building right here really reminds me of the old harbor building. I'm guessing that's going to be the only cliff space on this map. And looking at this map, I'm willing to bet that part of the challenge of the versus battle is where exactly you build your army. Like, one player might choose to focus on the front here, while another one focuses on this U, but actually the strongest place might be this large area over here. I'm excited to find out. And now back at the Tropical Isles theme, again, another very short map. This one might actually be shorter than the first one we looked at. That makes me wonder if they're gonna do some kind of difficulty tier, in the same way that you have different difficulties for the regular maps, like easy, normal, hard, and insane, which offer different rewards. It might be the same way way for these. And so if you can beat someone on a shorter map, then you get better stuff. I wonder if they're gonna let us use consumables here, so you can actually airstrike your enemies, zombies, to help them out. All right, now moving on, we have to me what looks like a medieval themed map, just judging by the seats that surround the battle area. This is cool because it looks a lot like the area where knights used to joust and do different kinds of competitions, except of course there was not electricity back in those days. Not really sure what's going on with these tables. Those don't really fit with the overall vibe of this map, but I'm guessing those are specifically there for cliff towers. Again, another insanely short map. This one could be tough to win on. Now we're getting our first ice themed map. This one is a little more confusing to me because it looks like there's not a clear differentiation between the two sides. If I was a fool, I might say something stupid like the enemies you're going to be fighting are going to be spawning from the opposite person's base. Like if I'm defending blue, the enemies I have to kill spawn in red, and for red, it's vice versa. So you get this whole long path to kill your zombies, which means the zombies that each person is fighting would actually be overlapping in the middle, which would be crazy. That would be a really cool concept. Actually, I'm hoping that's what this is. It's what it looks like, because I'm not seeing two clearly distinct different areas for spawning and ending. But there is this mirroring going on here, right? You see that? This area is exactly the same as this one here. This could be the coolest map to fight on, just because it functions so differently from what we have seen in the other maps. Okay, now I'm getting really excited for this update. So that is it for this little section of maps. We can click on this comment by your adversary, which goes to a comment from August 31st, so almost 3 months ago. And this is where I was surprised to see that there were so many different versus maps, because we just covered 5, and here's 3 more. And this is even responding to another set of versus map leaks, which I'll get to in a second. And here we are seeing the largest path so far. Now, this is a differentiation from the map we just looked at, because we are seeing 2 clearly distinct areas for fighting. No zombies are going to be overlapping here. And because the path is so long, we're going to get a lot more time to kill. I'm thinking this is going to be one of the easier maps as far as difficulty. And I don't know why, but this is kind of reminding me of like a Star Wars intergalactic trading post. I feel like this is a market where a lot of different business is conducted. These giant buildings look futuristic, but they also have a primitive vibe because these kind of look like straw huts. Now, this next map is much darker. Yo, is this like a prison? We're not getting quite as clear of an image of the path on the backside. Of course, that will just be a mirror image of this one, which looks to have a medium length path. Plenty of cliff space here. Very, very ominous ambience with the tall walls and the prison floodlights. This kind of makes me think of that death penalty game we were playing. And now the final leak from this set is an incredible, what is this, an eyeball down here? Wait, is this reflective or can you see through it? I think it's reflective because it looks like this side over here is reflecting the pillars. So is this up above? Yo, I bet this is an eyeball right up above in the middle. This is so cool. I love this neon gear design. I love any map with neon. Very sparse cliff space, about a medium length map. And you know, this is something that I didn't notice in the other maps. I wonder if these outlined areas here are going to be the only places that you can put down ground towers. So you can't use all this space out here. Same on the other side. That is definitely something they could add to make these more challenging, limiting where exactly you can put your towers. That might be the coolest one so far. All right, now let's go up and check out the final set of leaks, which are the original set of leaks from all the way back on August 7th. It's about 3.5 months ago. This one really blew my mind the first time I saw it. First of all, incredible design. And I hope it is just this giant building complex floating in space, because this is the first map that really made me think that I'm gonna like these versus maps more than the regular ones. And I've got to note here how massive these paths are. Look at these huge long straightaways with these big arching curves, another straightaway, another curve, and then going into the base. 100% this is gonna be the easiest map because you have so much time to kill the zombies. Not really sure where the cliff space is gonna be. I do see a building right here in the middle, and this looks a lot more to me like what I would expect a versus map to look like. I think what's so cool and exciting about the maps that I've covered so far is how unconventional so many of them are, with very short paths. When I was thinking of versus, I was thinking of something like this where it's like, oh, you're gonna have a really long path and there's gonna be a lot of area for towers, which is also gonna give you a lot of time to get money and then spam enemies on your opponent. different. So this might end up being more like the classic kind of versus map out of all the ones we have to choose from. Now, getting down to the last couple of leaks here, we have another much longer path, which looks to me to be the harbor versus map. Plenty of cliff space on these buildings and these containers. Very long curving path. The only thing they could do to make this even cooler would be to have these large cranes moving back and forth. If they do that, I'm gonna lose my mind. Any kind of movement in a map would be sick. And now last but not least, we have another heavily neoned map. We're going back to our roots and seeing a very short, oh wait, this is actually not that short of a path. Yo, this is kind of like polluted wasteland. You get the zombies starting here at the skull. They're gonna come out. They're gonna go straight a little bit, do a big loop, go straight again, do another big loop, and then go into your base. So it looks like the very first leaks they were releasing are longer maps, because the very first maps I covered were shorter, but those were also the more recent leaks. And so having these longer maps is what I would have expected, which is why I was so surprised with the shorter paths initially. Very, very cool look here. And this is some kind of artificial computer generated world with all these transparent houses and trees. And we get a little elevated platform here for cliff towers. Very nice. Very cool. And as far as I know, that's all the versus maps that have been leaked. If you know about any other ones, let me know down in the comments. Also, go ahead and let me know what you think about this game mode. Are you excited for it? Do you think it's going to be fun? Are you going to be playing on day one? Or do you not really care about versus and you're going to stick with the core game mode? And that's all I got for you. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and smash that like button with your forehead, hit the subscribe button with your big toe, and turn on notifications however you can so you don't miss any of my amazing upcoming content. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care, be safe, and never forget what I always say, peace!